Hello everyone, it's Tom Quee of Silver Screen Records here for a countdown of the absolute best horror movie soundtracks. Featuring macabre melodies from shuddering symphonies to petrifying prog, this is a bumper celebration of things that go bump in the night. So grab your popcorn, sharpen those steaks, check the torches for batteries, and get ready to relive those chilling compositions that have haunted our dreams and earwormed into our brains. And just before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the channel as we're going to be doing a lot more of these genre countdowns. Leave us a like, comment down below any of your favourite ones that I may have missed, and also check out Silver Screen's online store as many of the chilling compositions we're about to detail are available there in glorious vinyl. Anyway, let's get to it. Okay, and we're kicking off with 1922's Nosferatu. This is Overture, Omens of Nosferatu by James Bernard. An unauthorised and unofficial adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, the original film was actually ruled to have all its prints pulled due to intellectual infringement by Stoker's heirs. Thankfully, through second-generation prints, however, the film was saved, and has since gone on to be regarded as one of the all-time horror classics, and indeed a landmark for cinema in general. Nosferatu is of course a silent film, which required an orchestra to play alongside it. But with much of the original score by Hans Erdmann now being lost, this has inspired several subsequent soundtracks, the best of which is what we're tackling now, by Hammer horror legend James Bernard from a 1997 video release. Overture, Omens of Nosferatu then, is a magnificent theme that oozes fear and terror, a cacophony of trumpets, trombones, tubas and strings that plumb grand depths of terror around that simple but infectious refrain, that dun 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 dun. The piece manages to be both sinister and beautiful, mirroring the essence of the film itself. And at number 19, we have Rosemarys Baby's Lullaby by Christoph Kameda from 1968. As reliable as chips and gravy, a foolproof formula for intoxicatingly frightening fanfare is the juxtaposition of otherworldly childlike vocals against a backdrop of somber dissonance. The haunting lullaby from Rosemary's Baby, also known as Sleep Safe and Warm, exemplifies this beautifully. The taut harpsichords and yearning string lines, undermined by a subtle darkness that stains and permeates the piece with a disturbing aura. It's a dizzying listen, at once frightening and unsettling, but also calm and serene. It's that soulless, deadened tinkling beneath the la-la vocals that really does it for me. An insistent junkyard squawk that tells you to ignore Mia Farrow's coiling siren song vocals and to delve deeper, to listen closer. As, after all, think of the titular infant in Rosemary's Baby. Often the nicer something seems, the more chilling it can ultimately turn out to be. And at number 18, we have the main theme to 1977's Susperia by Goblin. Instead of enlisting a conventional composer to score his horror classic Susperia, director Dario Argento turned to Italian prog rockers Goblin to craft the unsettling ambience, and by God did they deliver. The choice of instruments that Goblin employ, for example, is very original for the genre. It's less of the subterranean swells and orchestral whines that one would expect, and more moogs, more Middle Eastern flavour, and most surprisingly, more conventional rock band elements. For those unfamiliar with the film, it concerns an American newcomer to a German ballet academy who comes to realise, amid a series of grisly murders, that the place is a front for something sinister. Thematically, Susperia delves into the intertwined nature of good and evil, something Goblin exploits brilliantly, mixing the euphoric and heady with the gut-wrenching and disturbing. The main theme is tense, dissonant, and at times maddening, the pulsing rhythms evoking ritualised ceremony, and the all-pervading synths infuse the track with a hallucinatory air. Goblin's music in Susperia is not only impactful on us, the listeners, but it actually helped sculpt the performances of the film, as director Dario Argento would often play the tracks at full volume on set to draw out some genuinely terrifying performances. Number 17, Let the Right One In's Eli's Theme by Johann Sokvist from 2008. A Swedish romantic horror about a young bullied boy who becomes friends with a young vampire in the suburbs of Stockholm in the 1980s has the most beautiful song on this list. Who would have thought? And this theme is just sublime, and in direct contrast to the events of the film, it's weightless, soaring, with a real frostbitten beauty to it. Light and miraculous, it weaves together strains of horror with the all-encompassing warmth of a new love. The feeling of melancholy is subtle and wrought, like the tender touch of a chamber orchestra. The most recent tune on this list in terms of release, and probably one of the more obscure, Let the Right One In is a fantastic film, but Eli's theme and the rest of the soundtrack, it's maybe even a better listen. And at number 16 we have the main theme to 1958's Dracula by James Bernard. From the moment the cataclysmic orchestral detonations kick off this piece, there comes a sense of something ancient and malevolent awakening, something unfathomable and perhaps adverse to garlic. A hallmark of James Bernard's iconic tenure in scoring Hammer horror films was his use of dissonant harmonies, achieved often by employing a motif a tone higher. And here this technique is devilishly deployed in the opening, rupturing bursts that make a stately arrival for the Prince of Darkness. Bernard's choice of silence and restraint in Dracula's main theme is masterful. At times the piece seems to rear up and take a breath before sinking its symphonic fangs ever deeper. It lacks a conventional melody. I mean, it seems perhaps unfitting for Vlad the Impaler to have a jingle. Instead, it stands as a declaration of preternatural menace. It wrenches and coils, featuring at its core an insidious pounding that echoes out like an undead heart. And at number 15 we have Hello Zepp from Saw by Charles Clouser, 2004. Want to listen to a horror soundtrack? Charles Clouser's exhilarating Saw theme song Hello Zepp is a constant presence throughout the franchise and has been used almost 40 times across the 10 films. And why not? It's the perfect embodiment of the hugely popular franchise. I mean, we have the ever-present hi-hats in the background, which is similar to the ticking in the back of the games. The industrial sounds of the song feel very similar to the contraptions that Jigsaw concocts. And just the overall sense of tension that ratchets and ratchets up till, at the end, you feel like you're ready to take part in some razor-laden Rube Goldberg machine. Maybe more badass than scary as such. It kind of feels to me more akin to a high-stakes anime than a grisly body horror. But regardless, Hello Zepp is a terrific song that never fails to get the blood pumping and the arms soaring. And at number 14, we have Christine is Dead from Don't Look Now by Pino Donaggio from 1973. Regarded as one of the greatest British films of all time, Don't Look Now follows a couple after the death of their daughter, travelling to Venice and soon uncovering a world beyond our wildest nightmares. The score was composed by Pino Donaggio, a native Venetian who had had a major hit with Luce non vivo, which Dusty Springfield would cover in 1966 as You Don't Have to Say You Love Me. DiMaggio had never scored a film before and was supposedly reluctant to do so with Don't Look Now. And you can feel that in the fabric of these songs. You can feel that it's got a certain potent, nervy approach. And I could have picked many, many tunes from this one, Don't Look Now, but I had to go with Christine Is Dead. Christine, of course, being the couple's daughter. Beginning in the throes of despair and, interestingly, punctuated by what sound like 8-bit squeals, Christine Is Dead pines out, it slouches, it broods and whines low. The song stretches and extends itself into uncomfortable, caustic sections. I particularly like towards the end where there's this singular piercing note that hangs on and on before being resolved in some baroque clatter. And at number 13, we have the main theme to The Shining by Wendy Carlos and Rachel Elkind from 1980. The ideal song to lose your sanity to. The Shining's main theme for me is not bewitching because of its instrumentation or its melody, although I do really like the skin-crawling electronic approach. No, for me, it's the inhuman screams that are littered throughout. Those piercing howls that rise up and warble and are really hard to overlook. The theme takes heed from something called the disarray, an 11th century medieval chant, all about how awful hell is, and it certainly plays to that sense of something ancient and unknowable. And as a testament to this song's power, watch the intro. The start of The Shining is quite innocuous with the sound off, you know, you're just following a car going through the mountains, but with this main theme playing, it becomes a whole different proposition. Number 12, the end titles to Alien by Jerry Goldsmith from 1973. In space, no one can hear you scream, but thankfully they can hear you score, and Jerry Goldsmith's work on Alien is some of his very best, which is especially impressive when you consider his pedigree. I mean, Chinatown, Planet of the Apes, the first 5 Star Trek films. The soundtrack to Alien is fluid and reactive, a whole xenomorphing body of work that perfectly underscores the desolate, hopeless nature of the film. For a movie so dour then, I really appreciate the fractured hope that Goldsmith gives us in these, the final moments of the film. It's oddly beautiful music for such a devastating watch. It makes you think of a better tomorrow. It seems more enthralled by the majesty of space than consumed by its inky emptiness. Throughout the film, to generate this otherworldly soundscape, Goldsmith employed a number of unconventional instruments, including a didgeridoo and something called a snake, which is his odd wind instrument, that perfectly captures that sense of falling prey to something inconceivable. Now on to number 11, the main theme to The Fog by John Carpenter from 1980. Though from one of his more obscure films, both literally in terms of recognition and visually in terms of the all-pervading fog throughout the movie, I really feel like the main theme to The Fog and The Fog in general is some of John Carpenter's best musical work. The Fog being the story of an unearthly fog that rolls into a small town 100 years after a mysterious ship sinks. And the theme has that element to it. It has that gaseous wooziness. You know, the synths, they lie low, and often it's hard to orient yourself as a listener. The theme is an interesting clash of styles, featuring more old-school stylings in form of the hilltop mausoleum organ and the slamming percussion, which then gives way to a more familiar Carpenter piano earworm that develops over a bed of clicks and whispers. A moderate success at the time, though it has been critically reappraised, The film spent 3 times its budget on its marketing, and there were, standard things like TV, radio ad, print ad, etc. But one of the things that I found quite interesting is, in certain select lobbies, they would install fog machines to help promote the film. I mean, they really don't make them like they used to. Okay, and there is the first half of my top 20 greatest horror movie soundtracks. We'll be back next week for the remaining part, so be sure to subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss a video, and of course, head to Silver Screen Records online store and check out their quite frankly astonishing offering of film and TV music vinyl, with many of the great works mentioned in this video available over there. So part 2 of this is going to be out very soon, but until then, boo!